On First at 9 this Monday, the 7th of July 2025. Language equality. The government believes in providing equal language rights to every Sri Lankan, emphasises the Prime Minister. Justice Minister highlights that the lack of respect for language rights was the root cause of Sri Lanka's ethnic tensions and warns against allowing a repetition of history. Precious transactions. Gem sales expected to rise by 250 to 300 million US dollars in the next 12 months, says the National Gem and Jewellery Authority. Golden Jubilee. Golden Jubilee of the priesthood of Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit commemorated. Tariffs postponed. Imposition of new US reciprocal tariffs delayed until August 1st.
Enrolling now for the June 2025 intake and complete your degree in 2 years.
Men,
From Derana, this is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening, you're joining First at 9, brought to you by Sri Lanka's most trusted news source, Derana. I'm Tharindu Mahendra, joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. In your top story this evening, Minister of Justice and National Integration Harshana Nanayakara says lack of respect towards people's language rights was the root cause of Sri Lanka's ethnic tensions, which escalated into an armed conflict. Speaking at the closing ceremony of the official language week today, Minister Nanayakara warned that history might repeat itself if the people do not learn from past mistakes. Speaking at the same event, Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuri emphasized that the government believes in granting equal language rights to every Sri Lankan.
The closing ceremony of the official language week was held at the Sri Lanka Foundation Institute this morning under the patronage of Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya and Minister of Justice and National Integration Harshana Nanayakara.
Language is a deeply emotional matter. If an individual does not have the opportunity to express their opinion in their native language, it signifies that society is neglecting humanity. National integration cannot be achieved through infrastructure or slogans alone. National reconciliation can be achieved by turning language policies into action. We must keep in mind that we have failed throughout our history to respect language rights. Not only did that lack of respect manifest injustice, but also a lack of trust and peace among communities, which escalated into an armed conflict. If we do not learn this lesson properly, history will definitely repeat itself. Hence, we must make sure that we deeply understand this lesson and work not to repeat it.
According to our manifesto, A Thriving Nation, A Beautiful Life, our government's stance is that the country's language policies must be implemented so that every citizen has the right to receive required services in their native language. These policies and laws are still standing and they are not new. However, we have failed to implement them and therefore it is a massive failure on our side. We have to accept that it is a dereliction of duty. We do not have to endure this situation, we must intervene and change these matters. We strictly believe that language rights must be granted to every citizen.
Crunchy goodness for hunger on the go.
Yadia, ලොව වැඩියෙන්ම අලෙවි වන ඉලෙක්ට්‍රික් ස්කූටරය Avance Auto වෙතින්.
The central bank clarifies that it has not issued any communication or recommendations to the Treasury on restricting vehicle imports. A senior central bank official pointed out that as vehicle imports are financed through dollar reserves held by commercial banks, they have no bearing on the central bank's official foreign reserves. Sri Lanka's economy showing signs of recovery, the country resumed the importation of personal use vehicles on the 1st of February following a 5-year suspension. Since then, nearly 18,000 vehicles have been imported by the end of June, with 13,614 officially registered with the Department of Motor Traffic. Over the past 5 months, letters of credit amounting to $800 million were opened for vehicle imports, while vehicles worth $450 million have already entered the country. Against this backdrop, some media outlets reported alleged warnings issued by the central bank to the Treasury to restrict the importation of vehicles. However, a senior official from the Central Bank of Sri Lanka clarified that no communication or recommendations have been exchanged between the central bank and the Treasury on restricting vehicle imports. The official further noted that vehicle imports utilize dollar reserves from the commercial banking system and do not impact the central bank's foreign reserves, which currently stands at $6.3 billion. Meanwhile, around 300 vehicles allegedly imported in violation of Sri Lanka's import laws have been detained at the Hambantota port. The Minister of Finance is expected to hold discussions with Sri Lanka Customs to determine appropriate action regarding these vehicles. The government plans to introduce an 18% value-added tax on digital services provided by non-resident companies to local consumers with effect from the 1st of October. Accordingly, foreign service providers are required to register for VAT in Sri Lanka and collect the tax on their services. The Inland Revenue Department has published detailed guidelines through the Gazette Notification 2443/30 on this new digital tax. According to the guidelines, the non-resident must first obtain a tax identification number before proceeding to acquire VAT registration. VAT registration is required only if the value of supply in the last 12 months exceeds 60 million rupees per annum or 15 million rupees in the last 3 months.
Apico NextGen. Make the leap to faster sleep.
Deputy Minister of Industry and Entrepreneurship Chaturanga Besingha vowed to introduce a new legislative framework to ensure that appointments to senior positions within public enterprises are made independently, free from direct ministerial influence. Speaking at an event, the Deputy Minister affirmed the government's commitment to promoting state-led entrepreneurship while ensuring it does not become a burden on the National Treasury.
BCC Lanka Limited, a state-owned enterprise that was restructured and is now operating under the Ministry of Industry and Entrepreneurship Development, embarked on a new digital era today, marking the end of over 35 years of manual operations. The transformation officially commenced with the digitalization of the Institute's marketing department. Concurrently, the Institute also launched its official website and social media platforms.
For the past 35 years, the Institute's operations were conducted entirely through manual processes, often lacking transparency. From this point forward, the Institute commits to transparent practices where details of procurement, distribution networks and investment activities will be readily accessible to the public. The government allocates capital to state institutions for a range of reasons, be it to enhance competitiveness in the market, curb monopolistic practices or safeguard national security during times of threat. In certain cases, funding is extended to support institutions in need of assistance. We call upon state enterprises to place their trust in us, as this government is guided by a forward-looking vision. We are committed to foster sustainable state-led enterprises without imposing undue strain on the Treasury. Looking ahead, we aim to introduce the National Enterprise Development Authority Act. Following that, direct ministerial involvement in leadership appointments will not be required. In line with this, a new legislative framework is also being planned to ensure structured, transparent management of all related processes. The Frontline Socialist Party today requested from Sri Lanka Customs the disclosure of the list of companies connected with the recent clearance of red-flagged cargo containers without proper inspection. Meanwhile, opposition representatives criticized the government's lack of transparency regarding the investigations into the controversial clearance.
The Frontline Socialist Party said yesterday that although the report of the committee appointed to probe the controversial release of red-flagged cargo containers without inspection was presented to the Parliament, the companies involved have not yet been revealed. Accordingly, the party's Education Secretary Pubudu Jayagoda visited the Sri Lanka Customs headquarters this morning, requesting the list of companies that own the containers in question under the Right to Information Act.
This report clearly reveals that it is the same set of companies whose containers have repeatedly been released without proper inspection. While 65 companies are mentioned in the report, as far as we know, there are just 7 or 8 chief owners and they appear to have received special treatment. Instead of addressing the root of the issue, the government seems to be shifting the blame onto customs officers and punishing them for it as a way to quickly put the matter to rest. On the other hand, the opposition is using this as a political tool, accusing government MPs of fraud, yet not conducting any real investigation themselves. They've made a lot of noise in Parliament, but haven't taken even the basic step of finding out what these 65 companies actually are. The government hasn't even presented this information to Parliament. There has been no transparency about which companies are involved. This lack of action from both sides makes it clear that neither the government nor the opposition truly wants to hold these racketeers accountable.
Meanwhile, several public representatives also expressed their views regarding the controversial clearance of the containers.
First, the Deputy Minister of Ports took responsibility, saying it was they who released the containers and that it was done legally. Then the Cabinet Minister in charge of ports said the same. But when that didn't seem to be enough, they turned around and pressured the officials to claim that everything was done correctly. Meanwhile, the President had to appoint a commission which revealed that releasing the containers without proper inspection was wrong. And now, what's the minister saying? He's blaming the officers, saying they acted wrongly and should be punished. Aren't the ministers taking accountability for this? In the end, is it the officials who followed orders that came from the President and the government itself who have to take the blame? So far, the country's Minister of Health has failed to provide a clear statement on whether these containers contained dangerous medicines, chemical waste or medical equipment or drugs that were dispatched by foreign countries. Former senior civil servant Bradman Veerakorn passed away today at the age of 94. Bradman Veerakorn joined the Ceylon Civil Service in 1954, served in several parts of the island and held the position of Secretary to the Prime Minister Sir John Kothalavala. As a senior bureaucrat, Bradman Veerakorn has served 9 former Prime Ministers and Presidents in a career spanning half a century. Welcome back to First at 9. In your business news today, the Gem and Jewellery Authority says that with Sri Lanka reinstating the VAT refund policy for tourists, gem and jewellery sales are expected to increase by $300 million over the next 12 months. Chairman and CEO of the authority, Naveen Suryarachi, speaking at a media briefing today, also noted that a Gazette notification amending the 18% VAT imposed on the import of rough gems is expected to be issued soon.
Following IMF negotiation, the following taxes were imposed on the gem and jewellery industry commencing from 1st of January 2024. Number 1 is 18% VAT on gem and jewellery sales in foreign currency to tourists. Number 2, 18% VAT on imports of rough and finished gems. Number 3, taxes totaling to 45.14% on import of gold. As a result, the gem and jewellery exports drastically declined by 25% from US dollars 477 million in 2023 to US dollars 360 million in 2024. There are nearly 8,000 operating mines in the country. Assuming that 50% of these mines are operating at break-even level, they should be producing gems worth more than US dollars 1.5 billion per year. If we are able to convert our gem production into official exports, the gem and jewellery sector will become the second largest export earner in the country. However, in 2024, gems and jewellery officially exported by us has only been US dollars 360 million, which is only about 24% of the estimated production. There are multiple reasons for this. The gem and jewellery sector's exports do not presently capture domestic sales to tourists in foreign currency. After 18% VAT was imposed, sales of gems and jewellery to tourists have significantly reduced. The global average per capita spend on gifts by tourists is US dollars 100. We can expect gem and jewellery sales to tourists to increase to between 250 million US dollars to US dollars 300 million within the next 12 months through this VAT refund scheme. The Gazette to resolve problem number 2, which is the 18% VAT on the import of rough gems, is now at the Presidential Secretariat. We are hopeful that it will be issued very soon.
This scheme is firstly we establish in 2018. After the COVID-19 pandemic outbreak, so we have to close it temporarily. We reopened it last Friday.
මීට වැඩිය සරල ක්‍රමයක් නැද්ද දේශීය ආදායම් එකේ ඔය TVRS account එක හරහාම එයාගේ account එකට හරි මේ සල්ලි යොදවන ක්‍රමයක් පහසු ක්‍රමයක්.
අපි එක දෙයක් verify කරගන්න ඕනේ.
We must verify that the tourist is definitely taking this product out of Sri Lanka. That is why the counter is being opened at the BIA. Tourists' accounts are held in another country. We have adopted the current system due to the complexity of the process. The Colombo bourse closed in negative territory today as a result of price losses in counters such as Melster Corp, Hatton National Bank and Commercial Bank. The benchmark all-share price index dropped 0.58% lower to settle at 16,042.2. Meanwhile, the more liquid S&P Sri Lanka 20 decreased by 0.49% to close at 5,339.99. Market turnover crossed 2.4 billion rupees. The capital goods sector was the top contributor to turnover, followed by the banking sector. Foreign participation in market activity remained at subdued levels, with foreigners closing as net buyers, purchasing shares worth 89 million rupees. In international economic developments, the original July 9 deadline for the imposition of the new US reciprocal tariffs has been delayed by 3 weeks to the 1st of August. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick confirmed the August 1st implementation date, with President Trump set to begin sending tariff notification letters at 12 p.m. Eastern Time next Monday. Rates range from a base 10% to as high as 50%. A new policy targeting countries aligned with BRICS has now expanded to include Egypt, Iran and others with an extra 10% tariff. Despite ongoing talks with India and Indonesia, it's unclear if the BRICS-related tariff will affect these negotiations. However, President Donald Trump announced that the US is close to finalizing several trade deals. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and head of the National Economic Council Kevin Hassett also indicated multiple deals are close and some flexibility may exist beyond the deadline. Welcome back. The 50th anniversary of the priestly ordination of His Eminence Archbishop Malcolm Cardinal Ranjith was celebrated today with a solemn ceremony. President Anura Dissanayake presided over the event, honouring the Cardinal's 5 decades of dedicated service to the Church and the nation.
A ceremony to commemorate the 50th anniversary of priestly ordination of Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjith, was held at the Archbishop's official residence in Colombo this afternoon. President Anura Dissanayake, Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya and Opposition Leader Sajith Premadasa were among the distinguished guests in the attendance. During the ceremony, a special commemorative stamp was issued to mark the Cardinal's 50th priestly ordination.
අතියුතුම් හිමිපාණන්ගේ ඒ විශිෂ්ට සේවාව අගය වහන්සේ විශ්වාස කරන ඒ නිර්මල ප්‍රතිපත්ති ජන සමාජය තුළ සැමට බෙදී යන සෞභාග්‍ය හැමෝම එකතු කරගත් ආර්ථික වර්ධනය සමාජ සාධාරණත්වය දුප්පත්කම තුරන් කරලීම දේශපාලන සිවිල් අයිතිවාසිකම් පමණක් නොව ආර්ථික සමාජීය සංස්කෘතික ආගමික ඇතුළු සෙසු අයිතීන්ද ඇතුළත් කරගත් පුළුල් මානව අයිතිවාසිකම් මූලික අයිතිවාසිකම් සුරක්ෂා කිරීම අපි විශ්වාස කරනවා අමාරු වෙලාවක අභියෝග රසකට අපේ රට මුහුණ දී තිබෙන මොහොත මේ වැදගත් ප්‍රතිපත්ති අපේ රටේ ඉදිරි ගමනට බොහෝසේ වහල් වෙනවා.
As the Holy Father, Pope Leo XIV, expressed in his congratulatory message to Your Eminence, on this joyful occasion, the entire community of the faithful gives thanks to the Lord on this festive day for your generous service to the Catholic Church and for your dedication to the common good of the noble people of Sri Lanka. In reflecting your priestly vocation and path of service are marked by a constant pursuit of the truth of God, a truth that enlightens the human's heart. Looking to the human heart and the joy of the gospel, Your Eminence has over the years been a strong and prophetic voice for dialogue, reconciliation, fraternity and justice. In fact, We are confident that Your Eminence will continue to be a caring father to your children and a brother who is ever ready to work with everyone in building a more just and supportive future.
අපි දන්නවා උන්වහන්සේ භාෂා 10ක් පමණ ඉතා හොඳින් හසුරවන්න පුළුවන් පඬිවරයෙක්. ඒ වගේම විවිධ රාජ්‍යයන් තුල විවිධ කාර්යයන් ඉටු කරමින් විශාල මෙහෙයක් කරන ලද රාජතාන්ත්‍රිකයෙක්. තව පස්සකින් බයිබලය ඉතා හොඳින් විවරණය කරමින් කරුණු ඉදිරිපත් කරන්න පුළුවන් ධර්ම ගවේෂකයෙක්. තව පස්සකින් කරුණු ඉතාමත් හොඳින් අවශ්‍ය වචනය අවශ්‍ය සොරය ඉතා හොඳින් හසුරුවමින් සමාජය අවදි කරන්න පුළුවන් ශක්තිමත් පෞරුෂයක් හිමි කතිකයන් වහන්සේ කෙනෙක්. හැබැයි මට නම් උන්වහන්සේ ඒ සියල්ලන්ට වඩා වැඩි මානවවාදී. ඒ සියල්ලන්ට වඩා වැඩි මිනිස්සෙක්.
අතිගරු ජනාධිපතිතුමනි ඔබතුමා වසර 75ක පමණ කාලයක් අප රට තුළ ඒකාධිපති වියරුවට ඉඩකඩ සැකසූ දේශපාලන අන්තවාදයන් අප සමාජයෙන් ඉවත් කර දමන්නට වෙර දැරීම අපි අගය කරමු. අප රටට නව ආරම්භයක අවශ්‍යතාවය තදින් දැනේ. ඒ නිසා වසර 2500කට වඩා ඉහතට දිව යන බෞද්ධ ශිෂ්ටාචාරයකට ඉන්න ඔබට දිවෙන ප්‍රාග් ඉතිහාසයකට උරුම කියන අප රටේ ආගමික හා සංස්කෘතික වටිනාකම්ද ඉපැරණි සભ્ય වේද සාමයේද ආරක්ෂා කර අප රට සෞභාග්‍ය කරාගෙන යන්නට තවදුරටත් උනන්දුවෙන් කටයුතු කරන ලෙස අපි ඔබතුමන්ගෙන් ඉල්ලා සිටිමු. මෙහිදී අප රට පොහොනි කරන බුද්ධාගමද එයින් අප සංස්කෘතිය ලැබූ උරුමයද ආරක්ෂා කිරීම අප කාගේත් වගකීම වේ. මේ කාරණාවේදී ජාත්‍යන්තර මූල්‍ය අරමුදල හා විවිධ ජාත්‍යන්තර සංවිධාන ලබා දෙන අනුශාසනා ක්‍රියාත්මක කිරීමට වඩා මේ රටේ වැඩි ජනතාවක් ඔවුන්ගේ එදිනෙදා අවශ්‍යතාවයන් සපයා ගැනීම සඳහා ගෙන යන ආර්ථික අරගලය මැද්දේ එම අතිවිශාල ජනතාවගේ ජීවිතයට බලපාන ජීවන වියදම අඩු කිරීමට හා දරිද්‍රතාවයත් රට තුළ ඇති කෘෂි ආර්ථිකයේද දීවර හා කම්කරු ආර්ථිකයේද ගොඩනගන්නට ඉදිරි සැලසුම් සකසන ලෙස අපි ඔබතුමාගෙන් ඉල්ලා සිටිමු. අප රට තුළ පසුගිය වසර 40ක පමණ කාලයක් තුළ සිදු වූ අතුරුදහන් කිරීම, මිනිමැරුම්, පාතාල ක්‍රියාකාරකම් හා පාස්කු ප්‍රහාරය වැනි බිහිසුණු අපරාධ මෙන්ම රට මත ණයබර පැට වූ දූෂිත ව්‍යාපෘති ගැන සොයා බලා එවැනි දූෂිත ක්‍රියා ඉදිරියට නොවන ලෙස වග බලා ගන්නටද තවදුරටත් ක්‍රියාකාරී වන මෙන් ඔබතුමාගෙන් ඉල්ලා සිටිමු.
That's all for tonight from First at 9. For the latest developments around the clock, stay in touch with Derana, the Sri Lankan news brand of international excellence. Thank you for joining. Have a great night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit adaderana.lk.